Does it work?
Yeah.
Okay. The cord's long enough. Sometimes I like to wander around because we got a lot of people here, and maybe somebody up here, if I don't hear a question back there, you can help me with it, can you?
Sure.
And then, let's see, where's my staff? She's going to take notes. If you've been to my town meetings before, you usually saw me with a pad taking notes, but I figured I got more time to talk if I not spend time writing. So that's why I have my staff, so we know what goes on here. Otherwise, you know, the next time I have a town meeting, Friday, I'll forget what was said in Bellevue. Okay, hey, there's 90% of this time, you're going to be able to ask me questions. So let me take a few minutes here at the beginning. First of all, for the hospitality of who in this town is responsible for this room, we appreciate very much you helping us make use of it. There's just a few things I say ahead of time, but while you're thinking your questions, let me start with one of the 5 things I usually say is, I have never had an inappropriate question, so I don't think you have to worry about any question you might ask me. So feel free. That could be about issues in Washington that we're dealing with. It could be maybe some of you just want to make a statement to me, and if you make a statement, we take note of that, and I don't say anything unless you ask me to say something. And then you may want to ask me any personal questions. I don't get asked very many personal questions, but if you want to ask me anything personal, I'd be glad to respond to it. And then always when I'm in Iowa on a weekday, I want to explain that I'm not ignoring my job in Washington, but we aren't in session this week, and always in December we get a calendar for the next year. So I could plan on having this week in Iowa, besides my weekends in Iowa, and do it to communicate with you face to face. So then that brings point number 2. I'm going to be with you for an hour and 15 minutes, but if that's the only contact we had, it wouldn't be enough from my point of view. So I always encourage people to email, and that's you can postal mail, but I mean most people email now. So do that and keep up the communication, and then I promise to answer. So if you don't get an answer, let me know. I get a daily count of what we have unanswered, and today it was 10,000. Now that may sound like I'm not doing my job, but back in February it was 36,000 as an example. So it's kind of like not a treadmill, but an assembly line. Work comes in and work goes out, you know. So, but let me know if you don't get an answer. Then I ask people to go to my speeches and my press releases so you know some of the things I'm involved in on grassley.senate.gov, my website, and then Facebook, and then Twitter at Chuck Grassley, and Instagram at Senator Chuck Grassley. So I guess there's a lot of people I can't even see yet until I move around here. Anyway, that's another way of keeping in touch. Those last ones are one-way communication from me to you, but it might encourage you to write to me about something. And then every Saturday we put out a new e-newsletter, if we have your email, called The Scoop. So if you want to ever get that, it might cover some issues you don't read about in the paper. So I may sound like I'm out of breath. I shouldn't be, because I didn't have to climb any steps. But I guess I'm done now, and now it's your opportunity. Go ahead, sir.
I'm retired military, and I have a pension and a disability. What they're doing is pulling my disability out of my pension. So I get the same thing as what I normally get in a pension. Is that ever going to change?
I don't think it will, but there's a bill in to do it. See? And by the way, he asked about pensions. Maybe instead of saying I'll repeat every question, because sometimes we'll forget it, if you want a question repeated, just yell, I'll repeat the question. Next question. Go ahead.
I'm Tom Buddy, retired Navy. We do have, Republicans do have majority in Washington, D.C., but they certainly don't seem to be in control. We passed an omnibus with unlimited debt ceiling. which includes $500 million for the abortion giant Planned Parenthood. That just doesn't sit very well with me. Right to life is very sacred.
Yeah, well, everything you said is right. I'll answer two parts of your question. One, the pro-life part. I think I have a 100% pro-life voting record, so you know where I stand on that issue. And on the other issue, it's strictly because in order to get an appropriation bill through the Senate, unlike the House where a majority can do it, we have to have 60 votes. So it gives the minority, well, you don't like that, but I'm just saying that that's...
You have to have 60, that can be changed.
Well, it could be changed, but it's been that way throughout the history of the Senate, say. Okay, next question?
Yes, sir.
I'll get you next, maybe, if you keep reminding me.
I was just wondering your personal opinion of the great things the president's doing. Do you have any comments?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me, there's probably a lot of people in this room don't like what the president's doing, so let me answer his question from the standpoint of the way I see it. I'll give a general answer, and then I'll give you some specific examples, and then I'll tell you a couple things where maybe I think I have a different view than he does. Maybe I'll start with the last one, because trade would be one of those. I have a different view on trade than what he has. On the other hand, I guess maybe I better wait and see if he's successful, and maybe I'll agree with what he's trying to do. But right now, it kind of scares me. An overview would be this. I believe a lot of presidents, including a lot of people that run for the Senate, run on a platform and then don't serve on that platform. I believe not entirely successful with what he's trying to get done, but I think he's trying to deliver on everything he said he would do in the campaign. Now, some of those that he can do all by himself under the laws of our country that give him the power, or the Constitution that gives him the power, he can do those by himself without Congress, and I think that he's trying to carry out as many of those as he can. Sometimes he's been overturned by the courts, but also don't forget that the last count I had was 38, but I think it was more than that. Obama was overturned on the courts 38 times that I kept track of, but I think more times than that. So then, to be more specific, I would say increasing, strengthening the military. I would say less regulation, and also a rule that if for every new regulation the bureaucracy puts out, they got to repeal 2 of them. His efforts to curtail the shortcomings of Obamacare. The Congress was involved in one of those, doing away with the individual mandate. What he did with the tax cut, biggest tax reform in 30 years. Getting ISIS out of Iraq and almost done away with. There's a little bit of a group in Syria yet. He's taking on the Iran nuclear agreement, and you saw the Prime Minister of Israel yesterday prove that the Iranians lied to us. There isn't a person, Republican or Democrat, in the room would disagree with the fact that he's meeting with the North Korean leader only because of what he's done to enforce sanctions. Now, we had Republicans and Democrats put sanctions in place, but they didn't do them as thoroughly as this guy is doing it. And I think forcing, in fact, the South Korean president said that if it hadn't been for President Trump, they wouldn't have had their meetings last week, as an example. Judges, he said he was going to appoint strict constructionists to the judges, and the most important one was the Supreme Court nominee. Is that a few examples? I mean, I'd have to read a list.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, sir.
My question is on the Tax Reform Act. I have 2 questions for your opinions here. The Stimulus Act appears to be more of a donor reward to those that donate to political campaigns. The top 10% of the income earners are going to get, what, 60% of the total dollars? And if it's supposed to be a stimulus, then the majority money should go to the classes that have a propensity to consume, and that would be the lower and middle income earners who are driving the old cars you see out in the parking lot and live in older houses and have older appliances. The people at the upper scale, they have mostly new things. And if you increase stock prices, that's great, but that money is not liquid money because that is invested mostly in retirement accounts, and that's not going to come out and stimulate the economy for a long time. Number two, loopholes. I see we still have carried interest for hedge funds, and we have pass-through income also in existence. Your response, please.
Well, let me answer the first one. There still is tax benefit to carried interest, but whereas it was based on a 1-year holding, it's based on a 3-year holding now. Now that doesn't satisfy me, but that was the compromise that was worked out. I think carried interest should be, whenever you give advice on investment, you should pay the same tax rate as everybody else. The only way you should have a lower tax rate is the extent to which you take risk, see. So, and besides carried interest, what was the point two, the other part of point two?
Pass-through income for LLCs.
Oh, well, that's the most legitimate thing we did from this standpoint. When you have a corporate tax rate of 35 and a high marginal tax rate of 39.6, that 4 percentage points isn't much different between what a corporate has and what a small business has. But when we take the corporate tax rate down to 21, and we did that to make our business competitive with the rest of the world, and you have now a 37% tax rate for the top tax rate, that 16% difference is very unfair to small business. So the pass-through income, if you the pass-through income would give you a 5% above the line credit for income you have as a incentive for the investment that you take for risk to create jobs, see? So that there's more parity between corporations and small business, either individual or LLC or subchapter S, things like that. And that's a very legitimate thing to do because it isn't fair to small business that corporations would have benefit. Now, this doesn't give a complete equity, and there's a lot of small business people that wanted us to vote against the bill because they thought that the top marginal tax rate for individuals ought to be 21, like it would be for corporations, but there's problems when you do that as well. So then the other part of your first question, I'll answer. I don't think it's going to be very satisfactory to you, and I wish I had some charts here that we used during the debate. But one chart would have the 7 different brackets from the under 15,000. I don't know how the brackets were, but let's just say whatever the 7 brackets are. Every bracket had a little bit different of a percentage of reduction in taxes, but the highest income bracket had the lowest percentage decrease in taxes. And that was purposely done for the sake of having what we call equity between the various brackets. Now for a family of, this is on a national, I think on Iowa, I don't know if this is Iowa or national, but where the family of 4, and I think it would be middle income tax of $75,000, a family of 4, that would get a $2,000 tax cut, see? And then, of course, you've heard more about the benefits of people that work for corporations, but even some small business in Iowa made a big point out of giving bonuses to their workers besides a lower tax rate, sometimes increasing fringe benefits and things like that that have come a direct result of decreasing the corporate tax rate. See? Okay, you want to be way back in the corner.
Yeah, you got about the telemarketing call,
About what?
telemarketing call.
Yeah, well, the law protects you right now if you want to take advantage of it. You can, on the telemarketing calls, you can give them your telephone number and they gotta not call you anymore.
I called in how many times?
Okay? Well, then let me tell you what I'll do for you, because I've done this for other people. I hope it works. I got a staff person here, Penny, standing right over there. Give her your name and phone number, and we'll send a letter to the FCC for you.
Because every time I call in, I got the number two. And they say, oh yeah, you've been on it since 2002.
Yeah.
You get the phone call.
Now, I hate to,
7 days a week.
okay, I hate to,
I had one at 9:30, I had one at 11.
I hate to disappoint you, but you'll still get calls for people wanting you to donate to political campaigns. Because they are exempt. But you give Penny your name and phone number, we'll send a letter to the FCC for you. You want to? Hey, I'm looking over here. You guys think I'm trying to avoid you over here, yell at me. Hey, we got 5 hands up, and I forget who puts their hands up. I'm going to call on this gentleman, and then you'll just have to keep raising your hands, and I'll probably get to you. Go ahead.
Senator, as the chairman of the Judicial Committee, I'm very concerned about the 9th District Court with all the vacancies. And I don't see, and I'm probably wrong because I don't have all the information that you have, but I don't see the emphasis of trying while we still have a majority in the Senate to fill those positions, especially given how that particular district leans.
There will be one up
Correct?
for a hearing next Wednesday, and then it'll be voted out of committee 2 Wednesdays or 2 Thursdays after that for the 9th Circuit. A major problem is, and I get this from the White House counsel, not that I've had a discussion with a Democrat friend of mine, Senator Feinstein is the ranking Democrat on my committee. I get along very well with her. Doesn't mean we vote the same or anything, but we get along well. And I'm told that they are not advancing names to the White House of who they would like to suggest, because most of these suggestions, particularly for district judges, but even for circuit judges, with a little less deference to the senator than a district judge, they are not proposing names to the White House for the 9th Circuit. Now, I don't know how many of those vacancies are out of California, but I would imagine more than half of the population is from California for the 9th Circuit, and because they got 36 million people, and you got less populous states like Nevada and Alaska and Hawaii. So I imagine half of those judges probably come out of California.
And so what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that the Democrats on the committee are not moving forward. Why do we need to have them move forward?
The White House could choose somebody and send the names up. See, we can't do anything until we get the names from the White House. So there's, like you could say there's 140 vacancies. Why aren't we doing something about 140 vacancies? Well, we have 33 that are out of the committee on the Senate calendar now. We have about 30 going through the process of our committee right now. But we don't do any of that until the White House sends off. Now, under the Constitution, they could ignore the senators, but the practical matter is that if you're going to send somebody up, you want to make sure that it gets through. There's 2 or 3 that we had to ask them to pull back. Sometimes there's something in an FBI report that we would find something wrong, that they would withdraw. Sometimes they call us up ahead of time and say, what do you think about, should we send this name up? And we look at it, and there's something wrong with it, and they don't send it up. But in the case here, when you got 140 vacancies, You want to spend your time on the ones that are going to be able to get through to actually be judges. And so if you spend your time on somebody from California and it doesn't get acted upon, then you might as well spend your time on some other vacancy that's going to get acted upon.
I guess I hear you and I understand that, except for one thing. That particular district has ruled, I think, on a very partisan way. And we have an opportunity, I think, to at least get some balance.
90, you're right. Nothing you said is wrong. 90% of those cases that get to the Supreme Court are overturned by the Supreme Court. That's how out of line they are with the other circuits. See, I'll get you.
Thank you. Since you are the head of the Judiciary Committee, my question has to do with this deal that's coming up with Sinclair Tribune. Sinclair is the people that are trying to get control of quite a few of the TV stations in the state of Iowa. And they're the same people that they already have control of one station I listen to, and they have made the people in the news department read a script as part of their news. In other words, they're trying to control what the news is rather than having freedom of the press. So my question is, are you planning to hold hearings on the Sinclair Tribune deal?
Not as of now. And we would only deal with it from an antitrust standpoint, where most of the problem is with the Federal Communications Commission and the Commerce Committee of the Senate under Senator Thune is more apt to deal with the FCC. Is one company having too much control over news? That would be more of an issue than the antitrust if we deal with it. But you understand, though, that there's no bill before Congress to deal with this, because this is all within the FCC. So those 5 people are going to determine whether or not this thing goes through.
But you could hold hearings, and they are going to reach 72% of households in Iowa. So it'd be sort of like a monopoly that they're getting hold of. Don't you think you should protect us?
I would say it's more, well, any Iowa interest I have to be interested in, yes. But here, from this standpoint, I think it'd be more within the jurisdiction of the Commerce Committee. And we tend to respect each other's jurisdiction. See, if it was an antitrust issue, my committee would handle it. And if it's an FCC issue, which is the 5 people that are going to make a determination of whether or not that'll go through. The Federal Trade Commission has a little bit to do with it, but I think it's a lesser issue, see.
Would you think 72% makes it kind of a big amount?
I haven't studied it that close to answer your question. Okay, next one. Go ahead.
My husband is a Teamster.
A teacher.
A Teamster.
Oh, sure.
We received a letter today from Central States Pension saying that the 2018 notice of critical and declining status indicates that Central States is in critical and declining status. And it also says, as indicated in this notice, as of January 1st, 2017, Central States Pension Fund has just 37.8% of the assets needed to fund our current and pending pension. What I'm asking you to do is to please support the Joint Select Committee on Solvency of Multi-Employer Pensions.
Yeah.
I know you're not a part of that committee.
Yeah, when they make a recommendation, and they haven't done that yet, I would be glad to look at that and give you an opinion at that time. I've been involved with this issue for the last at least 3 years, maybe 4 years, because I first initiated Government Accountability Office study. That's a GAO study that's still going on about whether or not there's been any mischief with the way the Central States people have planned it, see. And then from that standpoint, now there's also a bill in, I think it's called the Miller Bill, but that's in Senator Alexander's committee, and I'm going to wait until that committee votes that out before I make a decision on what to do. They have a plan where I don't know, see, the question is whether or not their plan is feasible, the Miller Bill, but they would borrow money now to fund this, and then the feeling is that it could be paid off in a way so after 30 years it wouldn't be a cost of the treasury, but I don't know for sure. I haven't studied that to know whether that's actuarially sound or not. But those two issues are what's coming up, see.
We are asking
Yeah.
for help with this.
There's also the bigger issue of reforming the whole law that deals with multi-employers. So if we change the law, it wouldn't help this group that's retired now. But we've got a situation where we used to, I'm just picking numbers out of the sky, but you probably had 100 companies paying into for all the employees, and then those companies go out of business or they're bought out, and then there might be 10 companies paying for all these retirees now, and it's really not fair to those 10 companies. So to rewrite the whole multi-employer pension thing. In the back there?
Yes, I just like to make a statement first on Mr. Biden was asked my question. Say, they give 500 million to Planned Parenthood, kill babies. Why don't we have 500 million to right to life and clear to claim to save babies? But my question too is on as far as investigating Donald Trump and right after going on so long. To me, it is I think the Democrats are just trying to stall once they get in power and everything. Then we're going to forget about what's going on the Democrat side. But Jeff Sessions, I was very disappointed when Trump picked him as the Attorney General because he's #1 leader against illegal immigration. And one thing about Jeff Sessions is he's just such a nice guy. There's nothing being done on investigation on the other side of all the collusion with the FBI and Hillary Clinton. And I know you have a lot to say in that department, but when are we going to start to push with all the evidence we have against them and bring it out to them? I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. And John McCain, to me, is one of the biggest Democrats out there pushing against Republicans all the time. He's always behind the scene, but he's always the one that causes the problems.
I've even been criticized by some people because some of our investigations through my committee of Trump and Russia, we haven't brought anything out that there's any collusion, and neither so far has Mueller brought anything out after 1 year. But some of that investigation has taken us to some extent into previous administrations, and I've been condemned by some of the other political party for doing that. But if you're a real, true investigator, you follow the facts wherever they take you. And if some of us take us into some wrongdoing in the previous administration, I think we ought to pursue that. And we are pursuing it, but I'm criticized for doing it. But just to show you that there is some interest in what you're talking about. But the real big splash in regard to what you're talking about, as well as what has gone on with Trump, is the Inspector General's report that should come out this month. And it goes back into the previous administration and then covers this Trump issue as well. And this Inspector General, I have great confidence in him, even though he was appointed by Obama. He's a guy that is independent. He's going to get to the bottom of it, and I think you'll have a lot of your questions answered on that Inspector General report. Okay. The lady there?
Yeah, I'd like to make a clarification. There are absolutely no federal funds that can go for abortions. Planned Parenthood does a hell of a lot of this. Yes. Yes.
Maybe I better go back over here. She heard me say I'm pro-life.
I'm pro-life. I would never have an abortion.
Okay.
I'm pro-
Hey, you haven't answered the question. The lady with the glasses on her head. That's you.
Senator Grassley, thanks for coming to Jackson County. My name is Lori Hickey. We farm north of Bellevue, and I've been involved in public policy in Washington, D.C. and globally for about 15 years. Just a comment and then a question. So my comment is just one of appreciation, both for you and Senator Ernst, for the way that you've conducted yourself, especially in this new administration, and leading with what I would say are Iowa values, and focusing on how Iowans want to see our elected officials act, and especially when it comes to your support of trade. So my question is around the Farm Bill, quickly coming through the full approval process, noting that all of us, no matter what side of the aisle, like to eat, and that some of us have also been impacted by SNAP. Any thoughts that you might have on how quickly the Farm Bill will go through? Will we be able to find some way to come together to pass it in a timely manner? And also specifically about the foot and mouth disease bank provision in the Farm Bill. Thank you.
There's $150 million, which is kind of, most experts in this area would say that's not anywhere near enough money. But there's $150 million for the bank, whatever the bank's called, you know, that would go to have ready-made treatment for any, not just foot and mouth, but other diseases as well. That's in the House bill. Now, we haven't made a decision on the Senate bill. We haven't had any meetings yet on the Senate bill except the hearings that we've had. And I expect that during the month of May, we'll get a bill out of committee. The House bill is geared very much towards southern agriculture. If you raise cotton, peanuts, rice, whatever else we have support for, you'll get above the cost of production. Whereas in the House bill, we won't do any better on corn and soybeans than we are right now. And there's absolutely, what I've been most interested in is having a flat amount of money that one farmer should get, and only one farmer per farm or husband and wife get, not somebody that lives in Wall Street in New York and has a farm in Iowa and doesn't get dirt under the fingernails should get anything. And they just obliterate all of those, they don't have any limits whatsoever in the House bill. And so I'm going to be working in the Senate bill along the lines of first of all, crop insurance, then straighten out some of the inequities within ARC that we have from county to county. And then we'll probably probably have not as much. I don't argue with the House bill on some of the things they're trying to accomplish on food stamps, but I don't think we can go that far because we got to get a bipartisan bill out. They voted out a partisan bill. And I think that there's probably 20 or so Republicans won't support the House bill, no Democrats. So I've said publicly on my radio broadcast that the chairman of the House committee is going to have to rewrite his bill either to get more Republican votes or to do less on food stamps to get Democrat votes. Green shirt in the back, right behind her.
You're talking about that you're waiting for what comes out. Did you make any suggestions on how to do this?
Make my suggestions on what?
Did you go to the House and tell them?
No.
So you're just waiting for what they do?
Yeah, that's.
Why don't you give them some guidance and tell them what you want to know about?
Yeah, if they,
I mean, that's what it would take.
Yeah, I would imagine, well, of course it's after the fact, but you don't really know what you're telling them until they put a bill out.
Yeah.
So that's why you probably are a little late doing it, but you got to know what they're going to do before you can give them your opinion.
I know, but if you give them an example.
Well, they know my opinion. Listen, they know my opinion on limits on what one farmer can get because I got it through the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
Last time I got it through the Senate. It went through both ways. The rules of the conference is that a bill goes to conference to work out the difference in the House and Senate. They can't change anything that's the same. They obliterated what I got through both houses. So he knows how I feel about it. And so what he's doing is he's sticking a finger in my eye by taking all the limits off.
Yep.
Go ahead, man.
Why can't Senator Grassley, I'm a veteran, a lady veteran, and we...
Thank you for your service,
You're welcome.
past service.
Why can't the VA find a GYN doctor to take care of the woman's issues? Right now, we are being sent elsewhere for some of our problems. And it creates a transportation problem for a lot of us.
I'm not sure I can answer your question. I can answer your question very broadly. But
In other words, I know for a fact that the VA lost their contract with a certain type of doctor.
Well, no, I can't comment, I don't know anything about that.
No.
But there is a latent understanding that's probably too late coming along, that because of so many women in the military, that women's health issues aren't given the proper attention that they ought to be given. And that, I'm not saying that we're just now waking up to that, and probably people in the VA was waking up to it more before Congress did. But there's a lot of attention going to that now, and I'm not saying that that attention is solving the problem you're bringing up, but overall, women's health is a much bigger issue now than it ever has been, and probably will continue to be a growing issue until there's equity between the sexes on health care. But one thing that you ought to appreciate is you said within the VA that those people aren't employed, but don't forget that the choice program, that when something isn't available for you within the VA, that if you're more than 30 miles away, it's more than 30 days getting the care, that you can go to the private sector to do it. See? And quite frankly, that program's been around for 4 years and it's not quite working the way that it was intended to work, but you know the president campaigned on the issue that there ought to be more choice for the veterans. And we think that one of the things that this last Jackson had to withdraw from being Secretary of the VA is because he was a big advocate for it, because he's being appointed by the president, and whoever's in the cabinet ought to carry out what the president campaigned on. Okay, maybe go ahead, sir. You haven't asked a question yet.
Concerning marijuana, a lot of these states are signing in laws for leisure marijuana, and you got kids putting pot inside their e-cigarettes or whatever they call them. And my concern is, I do believe that marijuana is a gateway drug, and there's not too many people pushing bush like the heroin. And my concern is, and what I'd like to see done is, in the states that have done this, that have leisure marijuana laws, that when somebody, like say, you have a good job and your company has insurance and you get caught on that stuff, heroin or whatever, when you go to the doctor, that the state pays for that man's health care costs, because otherwise my insurance is going to go up. And we open up a gate, and this stupid nation of ours is all sold for $1 bill. And this is the whole thing right now is beginning in building is about a $6 bill that they can make. And we better do something about this, because down we go. We got to get a little bit of righteousness back in this nation. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Next, the lady here.
I want to refer back to the farm bill that was mentioned,
Yeah.
the food stamps. There is talk now about anybody that on food stamps may be required to work 20 hours a week. Well, in a small community like this, I don't see how that's going to be possible with people on food stamps that don't even own cars, or there aren't enough businesses or places for them to work.
It's not an absolute rule. There would be exceptions. For instance, disabled people wouldn't have to. I suppose if you don't have transportation and there's no job available, that's why there's an alternative to having a paying job. You can do community service as well.
Who's going to do that evaluation of that person?
It'd be the same people that determine whether or not you qualify for food stamps when you go to sign up for it.
How much you're capable of working?
Yeah. Okay. Way in the back there. No. Can you talk loud for me?
Senator, thank you for being here. The question I have regards Social Security.
Yes.
And I recently listened to a gentleman on television, a conservative, who was from the Heritage Foundation. And his comment was that as a result of the deficit, that in the future we may have to cut benefits for and privatize Social Security. And I guess it would seem to me that if we can afford to increase military spending and have tax cuts that significantly benefit very wealthy people, that we ought to be able to maintain in its current form
Social Security that benefits many, many people, many of whom that it might be their primary source of income. So I hope that not only for the current generation, but for our children, that we'll be able to maintain that program in the future. As you know, it's what I think is called a defined benefit program. You get a check in the mail. I don't have to worry about how the stock market is doing or anything like that. It's a very important program, and I'd hate to see it sacrificed on the altar of other priorities.
The person you quote is right on one point and wrong on the other. He's absolutely wrong that Social Security could be privatized. It can't be privatized.
I'm sorry, can I be clear? He didn't use the word privatized. What he said was, I think his quote was, we need to make people more responsible for their own retirement plan.
Yeah.
Which to me means
Well, on that point, he's probably not a whole lot different than the thought that went into the original Social Security, because Social Security was part of one leg of a three-legged stool. It was meant to be a basic retirement system, but you were supposed to include private savings and pensions as well. So from the standpoint of the original goal of Social Security, it is wrong for him to say that other things have to go along with it. The other point that he made, though, right now, we know what the 1936 law says. And every year the trustees of Social Security, in fact it's about right now, you might be looking for this report to come out. They look ahead 75 years and predict when this is going to kick in. So right now, this year is 2034, because between now and 2034, we've got the more money coming in from payroll tax and going out. Now it's about even. But so that surplus is built up. It's an obligation to it. That'll keep benefits 100% until 2034. And then the 1936 law says that at that point, if Congress doesn't do something between now and then you'll get about 77% benefits. Where I get 100% today, if I won't be alive in 2034, but if I did, it would go down to 77% because you can't pay out more than the tax brings in. So that's why it's very necessary for Congress to do something with it. And it seems to me that you corrected me on privatization, but it'd just be stupid on two things: to privatize Medicare and Social Security, because they're part of the social fabric of America. I mean, they aren't only a government program, they're the basis for Medicare, for some retirees' health programs, and also Social Security is woven in with some people that take retirement from a corporation before they're age 62. See, so it's not only, it's just something that you aren't going to do away with. Next question. Lady standing up. Yes.
It's very nice to meet you. I love Bellevue. Like, I love this town. I love everybody in this town. We started a community pantry project, which are the little cupboards that you can anonymously go to and get toiletries and stuff like that. I started a marketing group. Yeah, but it's anonymous. It's in my yard.
Okay.
And there's one at the church. Just for people that are hard up, because a lot of people are one paycheck away from devastation. A loved one gets sick, you lose your job, like we're paycheck to paycheck, and a lot of people are. So this way it's anonymous. And I started a marketing group in town to bring more tourism to Bellevue as well, because it's beautiful. Have you seen the place? But my concern is I'm in the middle. Like, I like to see all points of view and make my own decision. But it seems like the last couple of years, everything is so divisive. Like, it's always the liberals' fault or the conservatives' fault, and it's okay for this side to do it because I'm on this side, but it's not okay for that side. And it comes from the top. Like, I feel like sometimes I can't even talk to my neighbors. I can't even talk on Facebook because
it's so divisive and everybody's so set in their ways. And I would like to see more communication and more community. And I think it comes from the top the past couple of years. It's so hard to just have a conversation. It's okay to disagree.
The top, including a Senator Grassley, or a president, or a congressman, or a governor, can set some tone. But well, just as an example, I tweet something. Read the responses to my Twitter from people. And you've got to come to the conclusion that social networking has something to do with the intolerance that we have towards one another. So there's a lot wrong at the top, but you can't blame it all on the top.
No, but it's setting a precedent, it's setting an example. If they can say this, it's okay. You know, I have a son with autism. It's not okay for somebody that's the leader of our country to be mocking somebody with a disability. He's already going to have a hard enough life as it is, and it's telling everybody else, it's okay to make fun of him, it's okay to bully him. And as a mother, that's heartbreaking. You know, I don't want my neighbors to be like that. I love this town, I love everybody in this town. I'm a pain in the butt sometimes. Dave Eishak can tell you that. But it's just,
I can't disagree with you, but I can't disagree with you, but if you think that there wasn't a lot of incivility before there was even a President Trump, you'd be deluding yourself.
no, and
Okay, next question. You're one of the younger people here. Let's hear from you.
Okay.
I think you're very young.
Yeah, I'm 22.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the president has publicly attacked Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Deputy Attorney General Rob Rosenstein. You approved both of them. If the president were to fire or have either fired, could you commit that you would make sure there was some sort of investigation into it being for cause, that they've done something specifically wrong before you approve another Attorney General?
I don't want either one of them to be, I like what they're doing, so I don't want either one of them to be fired. And I advised the president about last June by Twitter, and I know he reads tweets. I said, if you fire, pardon me, if you fire Sessions, we won't fill the vacancy the rest of this year because my calendar's filled up. And recently I was asked by the president about Rosenstein, and I said that I didn't say it exactly the same way, but I implied my confidence in Rosenstein. So here's the answer to your question. You asked if we would have a hearing to get to the bottom of it. The president can fire anybody, anytime in the executive. Well, maybe inspector generals. He's got to give a 30-day notice. But I believe everybody else under the law, under the Constitution, he can fire them for no reason whatsoever. That's just his constitutional right to do. So it wouldn't do much good for us to have a hearing on it. But I'm going to discourage that sort of thing. Not so much because I agree with everything with Sessions, because on sentencing reform and criminal justice reform, I disagree with him. I got a whole bill in that he's trying to kill. Now, and he got out of committee on a bipartisan vote of 16-5. So you can see how far wrong his colleagues that used to be in the Senate Judiciary Committee with him are from him. But we have our differences, but I don't want him fired. Most of the time, I think he's doing a good job. Okay, next question.
Thanks for coming, Senator Grassley. Our country is financially 20 trillion in debt, and its unfunded liability is much higher than that. Our Congress people they say when they get into there to do something, our country's a balloon that's going to pop. When are people going to get serious about, we don't have an income problem, we have a spending problem, right? And that includes everybody in this room. I'm a part-time farmer too. We all got to help in this. We can't, I want money from the government for this program, that program, whatever program. but all across the board, we're spending way too much money. Sooner or later, this bubble's gonna pop. When are we all gonna get serious about fixing the problem?
I thought we were serious about that in 2011 when we had sequestration, and we froze everything for 3 years, and then it was modified a little bit for 15 to 16, and then in late 17 it was done away with. See, and that's, if you want to know why on March the 23rd I voted against our omnibus appropriation bill, that was one of the reasons. Now, I want to add something over to what I just said, because it doesn't solve the problem we have right now, but we wouldn't be in this hole if we had a constitutional amendment requiring a balanced budget. And I've had an opportunity twice to vote for them, but it didn't get 2/3 vote either one of the times that amending the Constitution takes up. Go ahead, follow up.
What do us, the people, have to do to can we make that happen, other than, vote for the right person and then, but that's...
There's 2 ways to amend the Constitution. One is by Congress passing a constitutional amendment with a 2/3 vote of both houses and then sending it to the states. Then you got to write to your senators and congressmen to let your view known there. The other one is to let your state legislators know that states can promote constitutional amendments, and if 32 state legislatures call for that, then Congress has to move as a result. So talk to your state legislators about the second process. You haven't answered the question yet, have you?
On that point, the Senate is holding up the Convention of States, and the issue on that is to bring the federal government into financial control. The House has passed it twice. In 2014, the Senate did nothing. They passed it in 2016. The Senate has done nothing. We have only this week, and I urge you, if you are interested in this, to contact your senator and get them to get it on the floor. Because I believe we have the vote for Iowa, at least, to go forward with that.
Yeah, that's the process that I'm talking about.
Senator Grassley, I'm asking you to get it on the floor.
This is a state issue.
Sorry.
The second process. So you need to bring your here.
Still got that Ford Taurus? 97?
Listen, that Ford Taurus didn't last very long. But I think you're talking about my 86 Oldsmobile that I drove forever and ever, and it was on my TV commercial. I've upgraded to a 91 Oldsmobile.
Which way did you come into town?
Penny, which way did we come into town?
Like, no matter which way you came in, the highway sucks. And we need probably
You want an infrastructure bill?
Yeah. Why are we exporting 1 million barrels of oil a day and importing 9 million crude oil alone? And fuel oil, we export 1.6 million barrels a day, and we import 13.9.
I think an engineer could give you a better answer, but I'll give you the answer that I think a layman can justify. Different refineries are set up to handle different kinds of oil. And I don't know, light crude and heavy crude, and I don't know how many other types of crude there are. So some Texas import from Venezuela, because that's the kind of oil they have. And then we used to ship Alaska oil someplace else because we could bring in oil from Indonesia to the refineries in California that handled that type of oil. It didn't handle the California oil very well.
Keep in mind, it wasn't that long ago we were killing people in Kuwait, Iraq, Iran, and because of the oil. So we need to change something. We can't quit exporting.
The change has come from the private sector. People that were smart enough to think of the process of fracking for oil. We wouldn't be shipping oil except somebody decided that you can force sand down into the little cracks in the ground and then get oil out. It was only 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago at the most, that we were talking about building terminals so we can import liquefied natural gas. Now we're using those terminals to export it. See?
We should export all the ethanol we can.
Well, we're doing some of that, not enough.
No.
Yeah. In the blue shirt, you haven't asked a question yet, have you?
I haven't, no. I'm a retired art teacher, and I'd like to hear your view on Mrs. Boss's ideas of the vulture system and how that's going to impact education, public education.
Well, I'll answer the last part of your question. Way back when I was in the state legislature and chairman of the schools committee, we then later on called it the education committee, we had about 90% of the kids in Iowa were in public schools and 10% were in other schools. It's still about the same today. So I don't know whether any of these new ideas had much of an impact in Iowa. I don't know whether they had much of an impact nationally. But all I can say about Secretary DeVos is that she can only carry out what law there is. We're not going to pass a law in Washington dealing with charter schools. We tried Washington running public schools under No Child Left Behind. 2 years ago, we decided that wasn't working, so we got it more of a devolution back to the states.
And your view?
What?
And what's your view?
My view is that I voted for that devolution. I voted for Senator Alexander's bill that repealed No Child Left Behind. See? And so...
You feel that was successful?
No, No Child Left Behind was not successful, or otherwise it wouldn't have been repealed. It put this country in one mold made in Washington, just like the school in Bellevue could benefit from the same law as New York. One or the other is going to be hurt. This should be, because we're such a geographically vast country and our population so heterogeneous, you can't make school decisions in Washington, D.C. See? So what she can do is advocate things, but she doesn't have any authority to carry them out. See? Next question. And by the way, let me say, because maybe you don't consider her too wise about this stuff, but what I hear her saying is, we shouldn't be so concerned about the institution, we ought to be concerned about the kid. And what are we going to do to prepare that kid for a life of work, and work generally. And her view is that we ought to concentrate on the family and the child and what's good for the child, and that the family ought to have some voice in what's good for the child. And then you look at where things are in Washington, D.C. Half the 75% of the kids, 25% don't graduate, maybe 30% don't graduate, but of the 75% that do graduate, 50% of them can't read or write.
But that's not true in Iowa.
No, it's not true in Iowa. But I'm just saying that that's what happens in Washington, D.C. when the federal government is running the schools in Washington, D.C. And they pay $20-some thousand to educate a kid, and we only pay $10,000 in this state. See? Okay? Go ahead. Or you want to talk about credit union?
Yeah.
That's okay. Go
I
ahead.
just want to thank you for your support of S2155, which is regulatory relief for
Yeah.
credit unions and community banks. We didn't cause all the shenanigans on Wall Street. I appreciate you providing us some relief. So thank you, and thanks for your support of credit unions.
Thank you. Boy, you made my life easier. I thought I was going to have to answer another question you were going to ask. And praise the Lord, you didn't ask that. Okay. We got a couple young people over here. At least you look younger than most of the crowd.
Thank you for being here, Senator Grassley. Just wanted to thank you for your work as chair of the Judiciary Committee, for getting Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch on the court, reforming the Blue Step process. Those are great things. Also, your work on criminal justice reform. If you guys haven't read his column that he had in the Waterloo Cedar Falls Courier, I think yesterday, really talks about the great work he's doing on that. And I want to thank you for your support of tax reform. I myself have seen I'm going to be able to keep $2,000 of my own money thanks to you and your work on that. So just
Yeah.
thank you for everything you do in Washington.
Say, I think, are you the guy that was on the airplane with me?
No.
That was my colleague in Des Moines, Dustin.
Oh, okay. Well, was the guy beside you with the AFP with you, or is he separate?
Yep, we're all together.
Oh, okay.
But I have a different question.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
I thought maybe you were going to tell me you were the one that was on the airplane.
No.
He had to have a selfie. I never looked very good in selfies.
You looked good in that one, I saw it.
Okay, my question is, what is your stance and your position on family courts? Because this is a word I've always been wanting to use. Family courts are egregiously corrupt. I've been wanting to say that all my life, egregiously. But anyway, family courts are egregiously corrupt, and I want to know what's your stance and what do you want to do about that?
Well, we're not going to have family courts at the federal level because family law is state law. So you're going to have to ask your state legislator about it. But if maybe listen to you, I would change my mind. But I think family courts or does that fall into the category of drug courts?
Well, President Trump, that was one of his things on his platform was to, get the corruption out of family courts. And I was just wondering.
Well, if there's corruption in any court, if there's any place you shouldn't have corruption, it's in the court system. What'd you say?
Ninth Circuit.
Well, but you can say you disagree with 90% of their decisions, but are you going to say that they're corrupt? That's a whole different thing. Okay.
We have time for one more question.
Well, one more question. How about the lady that's holding the kid? I hope you got a short question. I always seem to call on the wrong person for the last question. Prove me wrong, will you?
With the next generation of farmers and beef industry, or beef farmers, and I would just like to commend you for all your support of the ag industry and beef industry in particular. And as you are on the Senate Ag Committee, I would just ask that you keep the foot and mouth vaccine research and most importantly trade on your mind when you're writing the English version of the Farm Bill.
Okay, I think the issue for any disease like that is the amount of money we put into the bank where they keep the vaccines, right?
Yes.
Isn't that your issue?
Yes.
Yeah. And I said the House has $150 million in it, but there's kind of if you're really going to, gosh, I'm going to fall over here. I better be careful here. Anyway, the feeling is, from the experts I've had talk to me about it, it would take about $1.5 to $2 billion if you were going to really fund for a disaster we had, like let's say the avian flu thing that we had with chickens as an example. So I don't know where, maybe 150 million is just a start, and with a commitment to go longer. But we haven't dealt with that in the House. Thank you all very much for coming.